Another week, boys, and another TWAB. This week in Destiny, we are sharing lots of changes coming to Destiny 2 Sandbox in just a few weeks. Here's the list of topics for today. Destiny 2 Bioware collaboration is live. Preview of the upcoming Sandbox changes. Celebrate the Lunar New Year with us. Trials map voting results are in. Destiny 2 deal at Humble Bundle. Our latest player support reports, and the Art of the and Movie of the Week winners. Now let's do this. Now, assuming direct control, you can fight like a Krogan, run like a leopard, but you'll never be better than Titans cosplaying as Commander Shepard and awkwardly dancing in the middle of the tower. They are alone on the dance floor because hunters are busy with calibrations as Garrus Vicarian, and warlocks can't stop arguing about the best biotic void build as Dr. Liara Tisoni. And this is all possible thanks to the new Destiny 2 Bioware collaboration. Dude, there's so many things that are just, I don't know these characters yet. Right. Again, we're going to play Mass Effect at some point. Now look for the Normandy Crew bundle at the Eververse in-game, where you'll find these looks as well as the Flux Dance emote and an Omni Strike finisher. You can also pick up the Alliance Requisition bundle at no cost, which includes the Enhanced Defense Ghost Shell, Alliance Scout Frigate Ship, and Alliance Dropship Sparrow. All that stuff is free. To celebrate this collab, we wanted to see your strongest builds inspired by Shepard, Garrus, and Liara. Maybe you like charging with a shotgun and punching everything in sight, or staying behind shooting from a vantage point with a long-range weapon. If you prefer to go nuts with your abilities, that's fine too. Show us using hashtag NormandyCrew hashtag, and we'll reward our favorite ones with a very special emblem called Phyllis Galaxias. You have only until the next TWAB. Look at there, guys. I don't know what it looks like, but you can get an emblem just for sharing some stuff and throwing the hashtag in there. Now let's talk about Sandbox updates. Update 7.3.5 arrives on March 5th, and it includes changes across weapons and abilities, as well as some Crucible-specific tuning. This is intended to set up the Sandbox for success in the new PvP landscape, as well as the new content coming with Destiny 2 into the light in April. Let's first dig into abilities. Take it away, combat gameplay team. So the ability Sandbox here. Hey folks, combat gameplay here with a quick update. This is a lightweight one for us, as we are heads down on the final shape, but we have a few changes coming that we wanted to share. As a quick rundown, update 7.3.5 will bring the following: a reduction in uptime for Threaded Spectre, a few changes to threadlings to make them easier to deal with in Crucible, a fix for the restoration timer extension with a few corresponding changes to relevant solar fragments. Yes, thank God. A small number of ability buffs that we're pulling forward from our balance pass in the final shape, and rightfully so. Final shape is supposed to be launching now. Might as well not wait until final shape to actually throw those Sandbox changes in. Now, Threaded Spectre. Threaded Spectre is currently overperforming in high-level PvP activities, particularly Trials of Osiris. We believe there are two core issues that drive this overperformance, so let's talk about each separately. First, uptime on Threaded Spectre is significantly higher than we think is healthy, particularly with fast cooldown, the fast cooldown of the Hunter's Dodge, combined with the 2 Threadling Grenade charges granted by Widow's Seal. For update 7.3.5, we are implementing a change that applies the same class ability regeneration penalty that Ensnaring Slam uses when the player creates a Threaded Spectre. We don't want this change to have a significant negative impact on the Threaded Spectre performance in PvE, so we're reducing the duration of that regeneration penalty by 50% when in PvE activities, which will also apply to Ensnaring Slam, increasing its uptime in PvE. In addition, we're increasing the Threaded Spectre detonation damage versus PvE combatants by 25%, with the goal that while you may be able to create fewer Shadow Clones overall, each one will be more impactful to compensate. So Ensnaring Slam, reduce class ability regeneration penalty duration by 50% in PvE activities, and Threaded Spectre now applies the same class ability regeneration penalty used by Ensnaring Slam when the player creates a Threaded Spectre. Also increase Threaded Spectre detonation damage by 25% versus PvE combatants. And there you have it. Many of you have been asking for this to get nerfed. It is done. Now let me just say this. Hold on. Let me just say this. And listen, I'm a Titan main. Okay. So I don't got a dog in the hunt, but I will say, I personally didn't find Threadlings to be that big of a problem. You know, Threaded Spectre either. Maybe it's different for maybe the controller users, but like I see the Threadlings, I just pop. All right, now Threadlings. The other half of Threaded Spectre's PvP potency comes from Threadlings themselves. Like Axiom both projectiles prior to update 4.0.1, we believe that Threadlings are currently too difficult to clear off the battlefield. To address this, we're implementing a change to make them easier to shoot and reduce instances where it feels like your bullet went straight through a Threadling without a detonator. In addition to their potency as a distraction tool, Threadlings deal enough chip damage to players to significantly change the outcome of an engagement. So we're slightly reducing their damage versus players, both at base and with Thread of Evolution equipped. Finally, we've identified a bug where groups of threadlings were not chain detonating as intended when one is destroyed, which is being fixed. So threadlings increase aim assist shape size from 0.41 meters to 0.5 meters. This makes aim assist more effective against them, making them easier to shoot. Also reduce base damage versus enemy players from 40 to 35. Damage with Thread of Evolution equipped reduced versus enemy players from 45 to 38.5. Big changes there. Fixed an issue where groups of threadlings were not reliably chaining detonating when one was destroyed. Fixed an issue where threadlings sometimes did not play their non-damage destruction performance when destroyed by enemy fire, resulting in them appearing to blip out of existence. All right, look at that, guys. Now we realize these changes are not localized to Threadrunner and will also affect Brew Reaver's potency in the Crucible, that it will. To compensate for this, we're pulling some other buffs forward that we originally planned to ship in the final shape to keep the power of their overall kit in roughly the same place. Update 7.3.5 will be increasing Arcane Needle's aim assist and tracking strength, making it significantly more consistent against close to mid-range or fast-moving targets. Thank God. Arcane Needle increased aim assist angle, the size of the cone that the aim assist system uses to bend the projectile's initial direction by about 50%. Increased aim assist fall off distance, the distance at which aim assist begins to decay from 30 to 45 meters. Ooh, that's a big bump. And increased tracking angular velocity, how quickly the projectile can bend towards its target by about 5%, and increase the length of the projectile's tracking shape, the shape in front of the projectile that it uses to find targets. Fix an issue where uncharged melees while Arcane Needle is equipped, resulting in the players appearing to freeze in a melee pose. All right, so it should be a hell of a lot easier to land the melee. But yes, this is an overall threadling nerf, guys. I mean, there's no other way around. It is a threadling nerf inside of PvP, and up here, you know, pretty much a PvE nerf. But again, this is targeting for threaded spectrum. Now, Restoration and Radiant updates. Update 7.3.5 will also bring an update to the Restoration and Radiant keyword buffs, which currently have a number of buggy interactions with the timer extensions, most notably the Ember of Empyrean fragment in combination with Ember of Mercy. We've rebuilt a significant portion of these keyword buffs to store their timer data more safely. So Restoration and Radiant fix an issue where the maximum duration of Restoration and Radiant buffs was being incorrectly stored, resulting in their buff timers resetting to their initial duration instead of their maximum when the buff was reapplied. So guys, when you would go and pick up a fire sprite, instead of you actually getting your restoration extended, it would reset it down to 3 seconds. It was extremely annoying and resulted in a lot of people probably wiping during their solo dungeon runs. Now, this also resolves similar issues with the shorter restoration sources like Sunspots and the Soul Invictus aspect. Huge change. Hopefully it actually does work. This seems like one of those things that I would be surprised if this fixes all of this, is what I'm saying. Now, alongside these changes, we'll be adjusting both the Ember of Empyrean and Ember of Mercy fragments, left unchanged with the dramatically increased consistency resulting from this bug fix. These two fragments, particularly when paired together, would vastly exceed our power bar. We believe that even with these changes, the experience of using each of these fragments, whether alone or paired, should be equivalent or better than the experience in the game right now. So Ember of Mercy now extends your restoration duration by 2 seconds when a fire sprite is collected. If you don't already have restoration active, collecting a fire sprite grants restoration with a 2-second duration. Now, this restoration extension is increased to 3 seconds while Ember of Solace is equipped. Now, Ember of Empyrean increased the maximum duration extension from 12 to 15 seconds. Reworked the duration extension granted with each solo defeat, and previously, it always granted a 4-second duration extension, regardless of the type of target defeated. Now the duration extension varies based on the strength of the defeated target. Defeating an elite or weaker combatants will result in a less time added than in-game currently, but defeating a champion or stronger combatants results in a greater extension. All right, that's huge, guys. All right, so solar ability buff. Let's stick with the solar for a bit. In combination with Arcane Needle's improvements detailed above, we have a small number of solar ability buffs that were originally slated for our balance update coming with the final shape. We now feel confident enough to move those buffs up to this release in conjunction with the Solar Aligned seasonal artifact. For our Sunbreakers, we're improving the consistency of Consecration, making it better to catch floating targets or enemies that jump too late. We're also increasing the travel distance of both the Scorched Wave and Ignition Wave, and further increasing the Ignition Wave's travel speed, both with and without Pyrogo Gauntlet's exotic armor equipped. So Consecration, increase the travel distance of the initial ground follow, a projectile that travels along the surface like a thermite grenade wave or the cold snap grenade seeker, from 18 to 20 meters. Also increase the height of the slam ground follow detonation by about 1 meter. That's huge. Increase the travel distance of the slam ground follow from 16 to 20 meters, and increase the travel speed of the slam ground follow, including Power Go Goblin's enhanced version from 16 to 24 meters per second. Jesus Christ, that is pumping, dude. We're talking like old school burning maul tracking right here. That's a huge buff. Now, we also heard some consistent feedback about Gunpowder's gamble self-damage, resulting in untimely misadventures, so we're reducing it to make the gamble slightly less risky. Gunpowder gamble reduces the maximum self-damage from 144 to 80. That's it for us. This time, when update 7.3.5 goes live on March the 5th, we'll be keeping an eye on how these changes are landing, so please keep the feedback coming. See you soon. So that's it for abilities. But overall, I like what I'm seeing here, guys. Solar is, again, this season is all about solar. It really is. You can use other builds, but solar is just so damn good. Now, weapon sandbox. Good day, Guardians. It's Chris Proctor in the weapons team here with what's planned for update 7.3.5 and a little tease of what's coming later. Each release, we make changes to weapon archetypes, exotic weapons, perks, and more, intended to improve the balance of the game and introduce some more variety. In this release, we have some small adjustments to PvP tuning for weapons. The bulk of the PvP changes are PvP specific. In the Crucible Sandbox section, hefty PvP changes to rocket launchers, drum grenade launchers, and caster swords. And a set of weapon perk changes, mostly buffs. Now, moving to weapon archetypes. When we created our new heavy burst hand cannon subfamily for Warden's Law, we inadvertently included some content that made them hard to control while playing with the mouse and keyboard. So heavy burst hand cannons, correcting an issue that was causing heavy burst hand cannons to have 25% less aim assist than other hand cannons when hip firing or airborne on mouse and keyboard. Okay. I don't know how much of a change this is going to make for me, because I still find that there's inconsistency when on the ground. Keep in mind, it had 25% less aim assist when hip firing or airborne. So we'll just have to play within the sea. I still don't see myself using Warden Law in PvP. Love it in PvE, especially for Lucky Pants. It's great DPS. For PvP though, it's a little too inconsistent for me. Now, bows continue to be hard for some players to counter in PvP. They've always been strong, but we recently made them easier to use by making their fully drawn projectiles hit scan at longer distances, which makes them much more reliable at range. We're keeping that change, but we're adjusting some aim assist data to require more skill to use them at extended range. So bows, reduce the auto aim fall off distance start and end by 15%. That is, aim assist will be less effective at long range, and reduce the maximum auto aim cone size by 5%. Now, we ship Breakneck with one fewer perk than intended in the right column. Oops. Auto rifles added the missing 12th perk, Target Lock, to Breakneck's second trait column. Now, I don't know how much of a difference that's going to make on a 450, but we're actually doing a review right now for Breakneck, so we'll try it. We'll see if that actually does anything. Now, lightweight scout rifles have always had a following, but they're suffered from being unforgiving when missing crits. We're making a change that reduces the proportion of crits required for optimal time to kill, that being 4 crits or to 3 crits in one body. So lightweight scout rifles increase base damage by 5%. Wow. Vouchsafe, you got Vouchsafe, that's pretty solid. You got Minor Multi-Tool. Oh yes, you got Staccato, right? Taraxipus. This is not going to be some just huge game changer. It does add forgiveness though. Minor Multi-Tool to me is still the king of PvP lightweight scouts. There are some legendaries that get very close to that. But yeah, we'll be breaking out Minor to see how this plays out. Now, despite being less popular than some other special weapons in PvP, sniper rifles are disproportionately oppressive to play against, particularly in 3v3 game modes. We're making them slightly harder to use by nerfing aim assist a little bit. So sniper rifles reduce the auto aim cone size by 10%. Wow. Okay. Conditional finalities, like yes. Keep going, more. Now, the rocket launcher meta has become more set than we'd like. With adaptive and aggressive subfamilies outperforming the rest, we're making changes to the precision and high impact subfamilies that give them more reserve ammo than others, as well as making other adjustments to give them more unique strengths. So rocket launcher, precision, increase reserve ammo by 2, and reduce damage penalty from -10% to -5%. Okay, keep in mind, precisions have auto tracking built into its archetype. Now, high impact, increase reserve ammo by 2, now deals more detonation damage and less impact for roughly the same total damage. This should make them more effective versus groups or when getting splash damage on a target with a near miss. Now, the above changes also affect Deathbringer, Gallahorn, and Truth. Wow. Okay, hold. Where is Deathbringer in this? Is it considered high impact? High impact. Okay. All right, so Deathbringer is considered high impact. I didn't know if it meant the above changes. When it says the above changes also affect Deathbringer, Galilor, and Truth, I didn't know if it meant like up in here as well. But for Deathbringer, especially right here, it should have more detonation damage. So it's weird because Deathbringer is its own exotic. So I'm curious to see how that works. But again, it's the increase in ammo, reserve ammo by 2. That's going to be the big one. Now, we've touched heavy grenade launchers a few times lately. And while they're fairly strong mathematically, it hasn't moved the needle. It's time to make some more substantial changes. We're pushing them more into sustained damage and ad clear. And we're also tweaking spike grenades to make them less of a dominant pick. Note that this change is not a nerf to overall grenade launcher damage output, as we've increased impact and detonation damage to compensate and dramatically increase reserve ammunition. So heavy grenade launchers increase reserve ammo by a minimum of 6 rounds, maximum of 10 rounds, depending on the grenade launcher. Reduce spike grenades impact damage buff from 50% to 12.5%. With the below change, this reduces the total spike grenade damage buff from about 8 to 3%, making them less mandatory. Interesting. Increase direct hit impact damage by 10% though. Combined with the above changes, this brings non-spike grenade launchers almost up to the level of spike grenade launchers currently, and very slightly reduces damage output with a spike grenade launcher. Increased detonation damage by 5% in PvP. This is offset by a reduction to detonation damage for no overall change. All right, so what they're obviously trying to do, because spike grenades is the perk everyone goes for when they're talking about grenade launchers inside of PvP. They're obviously trying to mitigate that, and you can possibly choose some other perks, or at least not have a perk or a weapon completely thrown out just because it doesn't roll with spike. Now, waveframe heavy grenade launchers have struggled to find an identity with not enough ammo to really work for ad clear, as addressed above, and not as much single target damage as standard grenade launchers. With these changes, they will be able to compete with other grenade launchers, and it will be easier to land damage. So waveframe heavy grenade launchers increase damage by 20%, increase wave width by 40%. Look at that girth increase. Guys, you know, I don't know if any of you actually have any of these grenade launchers, but you've got things like dimensional hypotrochoid, which is good. Is that our only one? That's our only one? Okay. Now my question is, and I'm almost certain it doesn't, but does this affect Salvation's grip? And the reason why I bring that up is because Salvation's grip, it had a change to it, and it essentially functions as a waveframe. Literally, when you shoot Salvation's grip, it does it stasis crystals, but it does it where it looks like a waveframe. You literally see it. We'll be doing testing. I would think it wouldn't affect it, but we'll be doing testing just to make sure that it's not like Salvation grip didn't somehow get this in the blanket buff. Now, caster swords are the only swords that have a range attack for now, and the trade-off for maintaining distance was damage. This reduction was more extreme than it needed to be, so we brought the heavy attack damage up to approach other swords, while also reducing the heavy attack energy cost to grant higher uptime on the projectile attack. So caster swords reduce heavy attack damage energy cost from 5 to 4 and increase heavy attack damage by 16%. I will say this, guys, Bungie really wants you to consider using, which sword is it? Here it is, Dragon Cult Sickle. And it actually is a good sword. It's a strand sword. It's a caster frame. If you kept a few rolls, you may want to consider using it. I mean, you're getting a 16% buff, and they're reducing the energy costs. I'm gonna try using it and see how it plays out, guys. Now, exotics. Ooh, Vigilance Wing is strong in PvP already, but it's fairly hard to control with how much that 5-round burst kicks. So we made that easier to compensate for. Vigilance Wing now has deterministic recoil pattern. Let me just say this, guys. Vigilance Wing is good. It really is. Like, even in this current sandbox right now, it can get that 2 bursts. I find that, yes, its recoil could be better, but I think it's extremely manageable even now. But with it having deterministic recoil, you are about to be seeing some 2 bursting activity happening with Vigilance Wing, and it's one of my favorite weapons in the game. I love to see this. Now, Vex Mythic class fires like a high-impact auto rifle. Other high-impact auto rifles have a larger aim down sight damage fall-off scalar, so we've increased Mythos to match. Vex Mythic class increased ADS damage fall-off scalar from 1.5 to 1.7. Damn it, Bungie! You have one job! Look, I'm not saying I'm not happy to see this, but I thought with them teasing Vex Mythic class, I thought we were going back to a 390 round per minute. I thought they were going to reverse that damn nerf and give us a 390 Vex Mythic class. They said in playtesting it cooked too much. But did it really? Did it really cook too much? Now, Wishinder's true sight is a big part of its exotic identity, so we wanted to retain that. But in its current form, it's far too useful in PvP, particularly with the Oathkeeper Hunter exotic gauntlets equipped. So Wishinder, True Sight will now deactivate if you leave ADS or hold it longer than 3 seconds. To reactivate, you must fully redraw the bow. Okay, I'm done with this. Now, Edge of Action's bubble isn't intended to compete directly with Ward of Dawn. And with the glaive changes from Season of the Wish, we've hit its health too hard. There's room to make it a lot more durable in PvE. You're damn right it is. Edge of Action increases damage resistance in PvE against all combatants except bosses to 85% and increases damage resistance against bosses to 15%. There you go. Keep in mind, guys, we did an entire review on the glaives, and you get a damage buff. When you're using Edge of Action, you drop that bubble down. It's not a big buff. It's like 5%, but you drop that bubble down, and you step in that little mini bubble. You come out of it with a damage buff. Now, Manticore shipped with a unique airborne playstyle, but it has several usability issues that we aim to address, including the need for a reliable way to drop out of the air and prevent accidental activating anti-grav survivability in PvE, and the synergy with builds that utilize void overshields. So Manticore, players must now be airborne for 0.5 seconds and deal damage with the weapon to activate the perk. This prevents accidental activation while running downstairs or doing small jumps. We gave it a special reload to quickly disengage anti-gravity thrusters. Swapping weapons will continue to disengage as well. Terrible also receives this special reload animation. While anti-grav thrusters are engaged, combatants will be less accurate when targeting the player, similar to Always on Time Sparrow. With the Catalyst, final blows and sustained damage with the Manticore while airborne grants a void overshield and returns ammo to the magazine. All right. Look, man. There is a playstyle there with Manticore. I don't necessarily like the playstyle because I don't like to be in the air, but there is a playstyle there. The fact that you're going to be granted an overshield with the Catalyst, dude, there's going to be a play here. Oh, Frostbolt's going to be breaking out Manticore. Players enjoyed the X-Duris grenade launcher for delivering on the Boomer Knight fantasy, but ultimately, it just wasn't hitting hard enough in PvE to be a top-tier pick. Fortunately, this was easy to address by bumping the damage and rate of fire, so X-Duris increased impact damage against PvE enemies by 50%. Detonation damage is unaffected, so the total damage increase works out to be around 20%, varying by target type. Increase the maximum rate of fire by 17%. Okay, hold up. How does this affect the moths? Would this affect the moths in any kind of way? Again, that's the trait here on this weapon. Loyal moths. Final blows to the weapon create a loyal moth. The moth will seek out nearby targets and detonate, damaging and blinding them. Again, we'll be testing this. Either way it goes, a 20% buff on the damage here is very nice. That means more moths, more synergy, more everything. And the maximum rate of fire also going up by 17% is huge. Now, my question is, if any way at all, this impact damage or increase in damage has any effect on the moths, that would be cool. But the thing is moths are considered detonation, and this is impact damage that's being affected. So we'll just have to see. Now, perks. Heal Clip wasn't as valuable to the activating player as we wanted it to be, so we fixed that. Heal Clip now grants cure ×2 to the player while still granting cure ×1 to nearby allies. Dude, we just did a review on Heliocentric, guys. We literally just did a review, and the role we picked was Heal Clip. And I know so many of you were like, Cross, I don't want to play with Heal Clip. That's a garbage perk. Look at that, cure ×2 with that shit. Now, Trench Barrel was originally designed in a world where there were few ranged melee attacks, and it wasn't desirable to make them even more valuable by allowing them to activate certain perks. That's no longer the case, and we're starting to open these up. So Trench Barrel can now be activated by dealing damage with ranged melee attacks. It has taken this long. It has taken this long to finally do this. It's crazy to me that it's taken this long. Now, Barrel Constrictor was fairly experimental, so we shipped it in a constrained state. We're now removing some of those limits. So Barrel Constrictor, which is essentially like shot package, if you will. Once activated, it no longer deactivates upon firing a shot. It lasts for 7.5 seconds, and it buffs all shots fired during that time. Enhanced Barrel Constrictor lasts for 8.5 seconds. Okay, again, it's a kill activated perk. I know a lot of people don't like it. I've actually used it a few times on Deadpan. I do like it, in fact. But it essentially, it constricts that shot and allows for more one-hit kill. I don't know if it necessarily extends the range. I need to do some more testing with it. Now, Loose Change is a stronger PvE subclass builds, but it's particularly interesting for PvP. We're adding some buffs to help with that. Loose Change applying a subclass 3.0 debuff now grants plus 20 aim assist stat and 20% reduced ADS movement speed penalty, in addition to the existing plus 50 reload stat. Applying another debuff now refreshes the duration too. Dude, this is huge. This is huge, guys. I know no one thinks this is going to be a big deal, but if you're applying, if you got a perk like Slice on your weapon, Lethal Abundance is a great example, and you proc slice, you apply sever, you're now about to grant yourself that plus 20 aim assist stat on top of everything else. Okay, so I'm just letting you know this is going to be good. Now, dual loader takes up a trait slot, which is a sufficient enough cost that it doesn't need a penalty. The wording also locked it to shotguns when there are other continuous reload weapons in the game that already load more than one round at a time. So dual loader, remove the reload speed penalty and change the wording of the perk description to make it clear that it increases the number of shots reloaded, so we can now apply it to other weapon types without confusion in the future. Wow, we're gonna get dual loader on other weapons. It doesn't have the reload penalty, which is a huge reason why we didn't use it. My question to you guys, what other weapon archetypes would we want to see dual loader on? Now, since we're shipping a couple of Tex Mechanico legendary weapons at 7.3.5, we wanted to take another pass at the Tex Mechanico origin trait. It wasn't really landing the hip-fire fantasy of the Foundry. With this change, landing damage while firing from the hip will make it easier to land follow-up crits. So Tex Balance Stock now grants plus 20 range and a plus 1.5 degree hip-fire precision cone angle in addition to its other effects, making it easier to land follow-up crits with the hip-fire. Again, guys, we're getting another aggressive scout rifle next season. So maybe, just maybe, you may be able to use it like almost like DMT in a way. Now, Hake Breach Armaments, Deconstruct, and Sundering felt like they should work against more targets that look like constructs or vehicles. So Hake Breach Armaments, Deconstruct, and Sundering now work against Void Souls, Strand Clones, Cabal Projecting Shields, and bricks. Wow, bricks. Okay, I'm down with that. Now, Hake Breach Armaments has one specific edge case that increases the complexity of the perk and is no longer needed. So we're reducing the number of different damage bonuses this perk has. So Hake Breach Armaments damage bonus versus stasis crystals reduced from 85% to 60% to match other constructs. Okay, dude, I just like that it's going to do something against the bricks, man. We finally got something to counter the damn bricks. Now, as an origin trait, Sundering has fairly high uptime in Warlord's Rune because of the number of eye turrets. However, a perk themed around breaking stuff feels like it could apply more broadly, and Shield Break is an obvious activator. So Sundering can now trigger on Shield Break in addition to final blows on vehicles and constructs. We've added a small reload speed scaler while reducing the charge rate benefit to account for the higher uptime. Okay. Now, Hatchling. Hatchling is a fun perk, but weapons that can technically crit but are bad at it suffer from precision kills being the only activator on certain weapon types. So Hatchling, activation requirements are no longer locked to the archetype in terms of precision or non-precision kills. Instead, the perk will trigger with either a precision kill or 3 non-precision kills. Dude, I am just convinced at this point that we are getting a Strand Wave grenade launcher that is going to have Hatchling. I am convinced at this point. It is literally setting that up right now. Now, target lock is a large part of the reason why submachine gun popularity has remained high despite changes to the weapon archetype. With this change, it's still a solid perk, but much less oppressive in PvP. Target lock now activates later in the magazine for SMGs at 20% instead of 12.5%. So the damage buff will swing primary weapon gunfights less often. Dude, not less often, like never. Like never. That is a huge nerf. Target lock is now dead. Target lock is now dead for PvP. It's gone, fellas. Say goodbye to those immortals. Granted, you'll probably just use tap the trigger or something, but target lock is gone. Now, Envious Assassin's loop works well, but with certain weapon types, the payoff was far too great for the amount of effort involved. For example, even with the above large buffs to drum grenade launcher reserves, it was impossible to shove all of your reserves into your magazine, making the perk the best option by far. With this change, it's still very strong, but its potential has limits. Envious Assassin. Each activation is now capped at 100% of the magazine size instead of 150%, and the maximum overflow is now 3 times the magazine size instead of 4 times. Wow. All right, so Envious Assassin got a nerf here. I think it is still good, though. So keep in mind, I think it's still a good perk. But this affects everything. It's not just grenade launchers this is affecting. This is affecting anything with Envious Assassin. Now, Bane Switch is a little too strong in its current form, outpacing most other options. But at the same time, it doesn't need a massive change. Bane Switch reduced damage bonus from 35 to 30%. What the hell, Bungie? Who the hell said Bane Switch was too strong? This is going to kill my Supremacy. Gonna kill my Cataphract, my Apex Predator. Not my Cataphract. What the hell did I just say? My Cataclysmic, I mean. And to finish the perk section, we're making these 2 additional fixes. 1-2 Punch now correctly deactivates after dealing damage with a powered melee. What did you just do, Bungie? I swear to God. I have not used my Strand Titan build literally all season long. I have not contributed to any statistic whatsoever. I laughed at the Trench Burrow changes because in my mind, I'm like, I have fists. Why would I need trench bro and a shotgun? But now I see why. What this means, guys, is when you activate 1-2 punch, you cannot do 2 melees right afterward to take advantage of that perk. When you throw your melee in after that, the perk is gone, which means you will have to stop and shoot your shotgun again to then melee and take advantage of that buff. Deconstruct updated the perk description to correctly state that it pulls ammo from thin air, not reserves. Fix a bug preventing the perk from triggering when shooting an enemy timed barricade and similar targets. For everybody that wants to rock deconstruct. Right. Mods. Bonus damage against mini bosses should have been part of boss spec, not major spec. We've updated these mods to correct that. All right, that's great. The future. We've pulled a lot of balance changes from the final shape in Destiny 2 into the light into update 7.3.5, but we'll still have a number of small but exciting changes shipping into the light, touching the content many players haven't thought about in several years. Oh boy, going back to public events on Nessus, baby. Now in the final shape, we're rebalancing many weapon types in PvE, buffing underperforming weapons, and leaving most high performers untouched. Since we're looking at PvE weapon tuning anyway, over the course of the year of the final shape, we'll be looking at weapon mods that feel mandatory, and we intend to make some changes that will increase player choice, particularly in PvE. We're also making substantial changes to several of the least used exotic weapons. We see a lot of requests for these. See if you can guess which exotics we touch, and adjusting some perks, including long requested changes to chill clip, making it more viable to use on slow firing weapons. You can also look forward to being able to enhance many more of your weapons. We'll be back with more information on weapon enhancements soon. All right, those are your weapon changes, guys, and other things for PvE. Now moving on to Crucible Sandbox. Hey folks, the PvP Strike team has a lot to talk about in the coming weeks. In this section, we're covering the changes to PvP specific tuning for weapon types, exotic weapons, abilities, and special ammo regeneration. Now, note, these changes are not applied to Mayhem, Momentum, or Checkmate. They retain their own custom modifiers. Checkmate has been retuned to be more representative of its original intended form, and there will be more information on that from the PvP Strike team next week. Our base Crucible Sandbox currently faces a number of issues. What we'll talk about here today represents a large macro pass designed to begin to address several of these concerns, and it will be followed by additional micro tuning in the future. The symptoms of these issues affect players across the skill spectrum, from 2,000-hour veterans to new lights, so it's important that we begin to address them as best we can. Let's identify our goals, what the symptoms are in terms of how our gameplay is affected, and then we can discuss the root causes and the corresponding changes. So goals, number 1, help players to more clearly understand the sequence of events that led to their death so that they can more easily learn how to improve. Like a kill cam would be fantastic for that. Number 2, alter the weapon sandbox to account for the increased average skill of our player base by reducing the amount of high reward, low risk options. And number 3, encourage primary weapon mastery to be an aspirational pursuit for players. Indeed, it is aspirational. Now, as we've increased the prevalence and strength of some sandbox elements, the ability to clearly understand what is happening from a target's perspective has suffered. It is increasingly common to be defeated instantly or so quickly that there's no time to react. And often, so many different things are happening that it's nearly impossible to determine the sequence of events that kills you. When a defeated player has difficulty recognizing and reacting to how they were defeated, it creates a situation where it feels like there was nothing they could have done, making it hard to learn what to do better next time. It also places a strong focus on being the one to deliver as many of these types of unreadable kills as possible, while utilizing build crafting to avoid becoming the recipient. Then sandbox elements that do not benefit either of those paths fall out of favor. Additionally, while the average skill of our players has crept up over the years, the weapon sandbox has not grown alongside it. For example, a much higher percentage of our players can hit optimal time to kill with SMGs, peek shoot with their hand cannons, or blint, look it up, with Wish Ender today than could several years ago. The hell is blint? Oh, hot swapping? Why not just call it hot swapping? What the fuck is blint? In large part, this is because a certain amount of forgiveness was baked into many primary weapons to allow more players to utilize them at their full potential. For example, high reward weapons like precision SMGs or aggressive hand cannons only require 67% critical hits to achieve optimal time to kill. And Wish Ender, allowing you to follow up with a bow swap with a body shot from a hand cannon. This leniency allows players to make mistakes and still benefit from the full strength of the playstyle. That made sense when the average player's skill was lower. But in the current ecosystem, a far larger number of players can take advantage of those benefits. This is manifesting itself in multiple places, but is most noticeably in the significant compression of the skill gap at higher levels of play. An additional byproduct is an increase in difficulty for new players finding their footing in a game where many veteran players have near mastery of these existing playstyles, which increases the friction of refreshing the pool of players in Crucible. Finally, at high levels of play, Things like high body shot damage, generous aim assist, primary weapon flinch, and low critical hit requirements all contribute to the feeling that putting in the time to improve your skill with the primary weapons is generally not worth the effort. With many meta primary weapons, hitting optimal or nearly optimal time to kill is less representative of mastery of the weapon and is instead merely an exception of standard play. Similarly, at lower levels of play, players can still lose relatively quickly to inaccurate opponents, which minimizes the time they have to figure out the sandbox and learn, often making them feel like they are playing higher skill players than they really are. I think Bungie's getting around to saying that body shot damage values are about to go down. Now, these symptoms are all generated by a handful of root causes, which generally linked to the others in a cycle of balance that encourages us to touch all of them at once if we're making big changes, or in smaller increments if we are modifying things individually. We have certain ability builds with either higher uptime or higher potency than we believe is healthy. To help keep these builds in check, we provided a near constant availability of special ammo, which means there's always a surplus of one-shot kill weapons on the field. And to help keep primary weapons competitive, we've made primary weapons highly lethal, fast killing, and in general, also very forgiving. All that leads to a high percentage of deaths in the sandbox where, from the target's perspective, it feels like there was nothing they could have done differently. Simply put, we have a risk versus reward problem. Over time, we push some of our sandbox elements to have high rewards without offsetting them with the risk of punishing suboptimal play. Some elements take it a step further. Instead of just rewarding the attacker, they punish the target. For example, the explosive payload hand cannon's flinch and Wishiner's true sight. To begin to address these issues, the following changes will be applied to the Crucible starting with update 7.3.5 on March the 5th. Player health. We have two goals with the following: increases to players' health. It gives us far more granularity to balance our current and future sandbox elements, and it lets us decrease the relative lethality of multiple sandbox elements. For example, grenades and body shot damage, all at once and universally. Player health will be increased by 30 HP in base Crucible. Here it is. It's happening, guys. It's fucking happening. Checkmate is about to be it. Player health will be increased by 30 HP in base Crucible. So players have 100 health up from 70 and 116 to 130 shield, depending on the player's resilience values. This is for all Crucible. I told you guys it was going to happen. And look, it's happening when I thought it was probably going to happen, which would have been now, or March 5th, when Finer Shape, of course, launches. Now, ability cooldowns. These values, combined with the changes to the mod economy earlier this season, will move us to a place where ability uptime is healthier for the Crucible. So melees, grenades, and class ability cooldowns now have a 15% penalty applied to them in the Crucible only. Super cooldowns now have a 20% penalty applied to them in the Crucible only. Now, ability damage. To account for the increased player health and the reduced uptime, we have made some general changes to melee and super damage and one grenade to make sure that we maintain moment-to-moment muscle memory and retain our current general rules of most supers killing in one shot and most melees killing in two. So supers, and that's a key thing right there, because originally, remember, checkmate used to be three melees to get a kill. Now, supers increase base super damage by 31%. Melees increase base melee damage by 16%, and grenades increase arc flux grenade damage by 16%. Again, they want to make sure that arc flux grenade can still get the one-hit kill. Guys, what's the resilience level or value necessary for arc flux to get the one-hit sticky kill? Oh, really? Flux can get it on all resilience levels? Oh my God. All right. With this change, arc flux will still get the grenade kills. Now, everything else, they're increasing the damage just to make sure you still get the kill because everyone has higher health. That's the main thing. Everyone has higher health. Now, primary weapon archetypes. To maintain the same optimal time to kill rates as the current sandbox with the new HP values and to place an increased emphasis on precision, all primary weapons except bows will have their critical hit damage increase. We also reduced the flinch dealt by hand cannons as they were a consistent outlier, even compared to other high damage primary weapons like scout rifles and bows. Oh my God, they reduced the flinch dealt by hand cannons. Wow. Now, pulse rifles, auto rifles, sidearms, scout rifles increase critical hit damage by 14%. Hand cannons increase critical hit damage by 10%, reduce body shot damage by 5%, and reduce flinch dealt to players by projectile impact by 12.5%, and the explosive payload by 10%. So they're also nerfing explosive payload here. Now, some machine guns increase critical hit damage by 12.5%, but reduce body shot damage by 3%. And bows reduce base damage by 15%. All right, listen, guys. If you're wondering why they're doing all this, they're increasing the health pool. They're also increasing the crit damage. What this is going to do is there's more emphasis on landing crits, meaning the time to kill will still be the same, but it needs to be crits in order to achieve that. No longer are you going to have a situation where it's like, I land 2 crits, 1 body, but I still get the kill, right? And I'm curious to know how this is going to work for Might and Multi-Tool, considering they just talked about lightweight scout rifles. But the point is, by having body shot damage and crit damage, having such a larger gap in between them now, the emphasis is for you to land more crits, meaning the higher skill player should always win the 1v1. And cheaters will always win too. So between those two players, they should always come out on top. Now, special ammo acquisition. This is the other big one that I know a lot of you are going to dislike, but this is the huge reason why this change is even taking place. After a lengthy test period in Crucible Labs, we're ready to move the special ammo meter system into the wider Crucible. We have made several changes between the initial version and this one. So here are the details on how it will work now. You will start every game, all game types, including round-based modes like Dominion, with 2 kills worth of special ammo for your chosen weapon. Instead of 2 kills worth of special ammo being granted every time you respawn, you will earn more ammo by filling up a special ammo meter, with points given for getting kills, assists, or completing objectives. Getting 100 points grants you 2 kills worth of special ammo for your chosen weapon. So base point values: kills 23, assist 10, death 10, control zone capture 14, and heavy ammo pulls 8. Elimination and Dominion point values: kills 38, 16, 16 on death, heavy ammo pulls 10. So this is okay. These are, if you're looking at these values here, guys, these are the value, how much value you get on that special meter, and 100 being the max, right? 3v3 respawn modes like survival, 3v3 clash, and countdown rush: kills 26, assists 12, deaths 11. We get special ammo meter for deaths. Why is this new information? I've never heard of it. Really? So I can go die 10 times and I get special? Fuck, I'm just gonna jump off the map. Rumble, you get 30. Okay, you get 30 per kill, but nothing for deaths. And then countdown, charge arm 20, charge diffuse 40, charge detonated 70. So literally playing the objective. Wow. Now, general notes: kills from special ammo weapons and heavy ammo weapons do not grant any points towards special ammo meter progress. Jumping off the map will subtract progress from the special ammo meter. All right, never mind. Yeah, you can't do it then. You got to get killed naturally. Ammo is not dropped on death, and you will not lose the special ammo you have earned when you are defeated or revived. Earned special ammo will carry over between rounds. Swapping from double primary weapons to a special ammo weapon will reset your special ammo meter progress. Ooh, swapping from double primary weapons to a special ammo weapon. We used to hold double primary weapons. Like round 1 of trials, you did double primary, and then second round you swapped to your special, and it would actually still carry over. You cannot do that. Now, special weapon archetypes. To offset the increased health and partially make up for the reduced uptime, we've increased the base damage of several special ammo weapons. Trace rifles, shotguns, and fusion rifles increase base damage by 20%. Oh, naturally, because the health increase. And glaives increase projectile damage by 20% and increase melee damage by 16%. Okay? Now, heavy weapon archetypes. Heavy ammo grenade launchers have been the meta pick for PvP for a long time, and we wanted to make sure they did not get any better with the PvP changes outlined above. In fact, due to the increased health, it will be a little more difficult for them to kill high resilience guardians when using proximity grenades. Machine guns have long been the shadow of other heavy weapons, so we wanted to give them a little boost upward as well. So heavy grenade launchers reduce detonation damage by 5%. Machine guns increase base damage by 20%. All right, might actually use a machine gun now. Now, exotic weapons. Some exotic weapons partially bypass the special ammo economy changes. In a world with reduced breech-loaded grenade launchers and fusion rifles, they quickly rose to the top of the list of annoyances. Crimson, like other hand cannons, has long been dealing extreme amounts of flinch to other players. It does a lot of flinch. And this was exacerbated by the fact that it fires in a burst. It has been custom tuned to deal slightly less flinch than other hand cannons. There were also a couple of exotic weapons that we felt deserved to come up a bit, so they were not punished by the changes. So Fighting Lion decreased damage versus players in Crucible by 20%. Devil's Ruin decreased charge beam damage against players by 15%. Crimson reduced flinch dealt to players by projectile impact by 17.5%, so it won't be dealing as much flinch. Forerunner increased damage versus players in Crucible by 20%. Probably still just going to just get the 3 tap. It won't be 2 crit 1 body though. It'll be still 3 crits. And Symmetry increased revolution damage versus players in Crucible by 16%. All right, view, that's a lot to cover, and there's even more coming next week from the PvP Strike team, including information on new rewards, game modes, matchmaking details, spawn tuning changes, trials updates, and more. Now, happy Lunar New Year. February 10th marked the start of the Lunar New Year, so let's celebrate together and welcome the Year of the Dragon. Very fitting, don't you think? Riven would be pleased. To honor this occasion, we have a very special emblem called Risen for you all. It can be redeemed using this link or the code below. Here's the code right here, guys. Also, some new items from the Eververse store. The trials map for this week is Dead Cliffs. I actually might play. Dude, it's so hit or miss with Dead Cliffs. I either love it or I have the worst time ever. Also, Destiny 2 and Humble Bundle. Guys, if you have a friend that wants to check out Destiny, right now, you can pick up this Humble Bundle for $40. This is all of this stuff right here. Everything right here. $40 you can pick up. That is a hell of a deal. That's old content and current content. Oh, it also says on top of that, 5% of all the proceeds for this Humble Bundle go directly to the Bungie Foundation. Well, that's awesome. And that's it for this week's TWAB. We hope the Sandbox changes we share today have you hyped for what's to come. We'll have more details to share in the following weeks too. Until then, let's focus on the present. How are you doing with Moments of Triumph? Have you been farming some nice Adept weapons and Grandmaster Knifos? Don't forget the weekly Riven's Wishes are still available. That's all for now, and that's a lot. Destiny 2 community team. That's it, guys. That is this week's TWAB.
Slap that like button like your mama told you right.